Lucinda Violet Wade Henwood, known affectionately to most of us as Grammie. Isn't it prying, someone might ask, to put a person's diary on tape? For some, yes, but for Grammie, I think not. I remember that the highlight of her visits with us would be after the supper dishes were all cleaned up, we would curl up on the couch and listen and laugh at the stories of her younger days again and again and again. We learned many things: tales of chasing bull mooses instead of cows, how Papa stuffed a bobcat to play with, rolling down a hill in Kansas, riding in a covered wagon, and sitting in the mush, of watching Indians gather rice at Height of Land Lake, of teaching a one-room schoolhouse full of rebellious boys who would rather sit up in trees than come down to class, of funny accidents like sliding under an outhouse or completely knocking down the church front door while Papa was leading in worship, of meeting a funny little Englishman who smelled heavily of cologne, of marrying that same Englishman and watching the family parrot chase him around the house in his nightshirt, of work with that same husband, Herbert Henwood, in the ministry of the American Sunday School Union, of her faith in God. At her death, I received her diary and learned much more. I learned that Lucinda Violet Wade would rather be called Violet because she hates it when her friends called her Sin. It sounded too much like sin, and since Papa was a preacher, it wouldn't do for any daughter of his to have a name like Sin. I learned that she had friends named Minnie, Clara, Rosa or Rosebud, Alton, Clay Aldrich, Lola, Iola, Duncan, Lydia, Jewel, brother and sister Aldrich, Hazel, Mr. Owens. They had telephones. Her favorite song was Hello Central, Give Miss Me Heaven. I learned that she liked flowers, ribbons, games and parties, had girlfriends, boyfriends. She liked animals, poetry, dolls, ice skating, and reading. I learned that she was spiritual-minded and took church and sermons seriously, that she was sensitive, very sensitive to people and animals. I learned that she was very dramatic, and she had definite opinions. Would she mind? I think not. In fact, I think she would be pleased that I would read her diary on tape and share it with others. So curl up with the couch with Grammie, and let's begin. Violet Wade, Park Rapids, Minnesota, July 4th, 1905. The poem in the front cover of her diary was an autographed verse. I give my heart to thee, wilt thou give thine to me? We'll lock them up together and throw away the key. 4th of July, 1905, Tuesday. Gertie and I stayed at Mr. Buss's all night Monday night. When we got up in the morning, it was raining. I got the potatoes ready for breakfast, and Gertie looked over strawberries. After breakfast, it was not raining quite as hard, so Anson hitched up, and we came home. Got here at dinner time, rain all day. Mr. Gunderson and Mr. Burrs were here for supper. After supper, Gertie and I went uptown. When we came back, Mr. Gunderson, Mabel were out walking. Then Nina Richards and Ora came out, and we all went down to the bridge and watched fireworks. Wednesday, July 5th. I started summer school in the morning. Look up fire dresses for the present, fire classes for the present. In the afternoon, Mr. Hoyt came over, then Mr. Gilbert Gunderson came and took our pictures. Then Mabel took one of him and Papa, and she and him went to the lake. Papa, Pansy, Gertie, and I went out to Long Lake. We first picked some gooseberries and then went out fishing to sit out under the old fallen tree. Gertie caught a nice one. We were going to church in the evening, but got home too late. I studied. Gertie played on the guitar and sang. Thursday, July 6th. Poor little Violet Blossom is so very busy. I have to write in her journal for her. Gertie. So evidently Gertie wrote this. Went to school in forenoon as usual. Eva, Nina, and Mabel go. I am getting well started in now. Sister Hoyt came down. Mama and Gertie washed. I studied. After supper they gathered in for prayer. I led. Brother and Sister Parks and Sister Hoyt were added to our number. Had a very profitable meeting. We realize the need of more power and are looking to God for it. After meeting Gertie, and I strolled out to the street for a short walk before retiring. So did Nina and Eva. A little boy heard us laughing and said, "Don't laugh so hard, you'll burst." Friday, July 7th. At school, they are beginning to call on me in recitation, so I must study hard. Now I am started. Mama, Papa, and Gertie went strawberrying in the forenoon. They arrived in the p.m. I studied after all noon in the tent, but it was quiet and cool. Gertie and I went to Mr. Orton's after her irons, after dinner. After supper, we girls went downtown, Nina and Mabel, to hear the band play. Eva, Gertie, and I lectured in the Baptist church, but as the lecturer did not arrive, we too listened to the band. We enjoyed it. We also gave out some tracts to the men along the streets. We're home before tea. 10. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Saw our missionary. Got a nice letter from Sister Aldrich. They like it out there very much. Saturday, July 8th. Was real tired. School same. In the afternoon, Papa, Mama, Gertie, and Mabel went after strawberries. Mabel went out the wheel. Nina, Eva, and I studied our lessons. After supper, Gertie and I went to the store. We enjoyed it so much. The water plays so gracefully, and the waves and bubbles seemed to be chasing and crowding each other to get room to move on. And away on its course goes to where? Yes, who can tell? So it is, each drop in its place, but you do not see the same water in watching for one place. Just as we meet friends, they come into our lives, linger for a moment as it were, and are gone again. But unlike the waters, if we are faithful to God, though we part with friends on earth, we may find them again in the sweet beyond, where no more parting, grief, or pain can sadden our hearts. Sunday, July 9th. In the forenoon, Gertie and I strolled off in the pines to study our Sunday school lesson. Enjoyed ourselves. Mabel and Eva went to the Baptist church in the morning. We had an interesting Sunday school in our tent in the afternoon, after which Brother Parks preached from Pray Without Ceasing and in Everything Give Thanks. After meeting, Gertie and I slept out here in the pines on a quiet. We could scarcely keep our eyes open in church. Then we took a walk down towards where Mabel and Nina went to such a pretty place in the river, but went as far as the field and turned back. Papa preached in the evening from Acts 30:31. It was good. We were tired, quite tired. Monday, July the 7th. Olaf Iverson died today. One more of our little band crossed over. May we meet again, dear friend. Yes, meet at Jesus' feet. Tuesday. A pretty warm day for school and study. Tried to get our lessons early, but it seems to take just so much time to get them well. Wednesday, July 12th. Gertie's got a good letter. Grown. Nellie Myrtle has been sick since camp meeting. School went as usual. There was an after dance of 75 now, or rather enrollment. There is an attendance of 75 now, or rather enrollment. That no Sister Jarvis came in the PM to miss meeting, but not enough came to form a society. Nina's sister, Mrs. Trish, came down from Askley on her way to Minnesota. She came with us at noon and stayed here all night. She, Mabel, and Nina were gone to the river a while. Mabel and I went up after mail after supper, retired late, and the missions report quite kept us awake some. Retired late, and the mosquitoes kept us awake some. Thursday, July 13th. A real hot day to go to school. In the afternoon, we got Mr. Jarvis's lumber wagons and all went out to Long Lake. We took books along. I studied spelling on the way out. Papa took us girls, except Gertie, to a little island in the lake. We went in the boat, took our books and bathing suits. Then the rest went fishing with the boat. They caught 7 fish. After they landed and Papa took us home, we ate our supper by the lake in a real picnic fashion. Then we girls came out ahead towards the house and picked strawberries. Got enough for a mess. It was prayer meeting time when we reached home. Gertie led. It was in the tent. Friday, July 14th. We have to get up early to get to school in time. Gertie sewed. Eva's father, Mr. Newell, was here to dinner. We girls were busy studying all afternoon. Mama and Gertie went calling away up across the track. Papa was downtown and got a telephone from a worker that wished to see him. She was to be at the Baptist church watch tonight, and as Papa was very tired and not ready, he sent Gertie and me in his place. We saw her and arranged with her for meetings here in the tent next Wednesday evening. We enjoyed the lecture part of the meeting. We left before the meeting closed. I saw Nina and Mabel as soon as we came out, and we went out over town a while to listen to the band music. Came home quite early, for we were tired and sleepy. Saturday, July 15th. Papa, Mama, and Pansy went to Shell Lake. So we 5 girls and Vern are left to keep house. We had a thunder shower in the morning. Then it turned hot and sultry again, and it seemed as though we could not get a good breath away anywhere. Gertie had dinner ready when we got home from school. I had to make a cake after dinner. I tried hard to get my lessons, but it just seemed as though I could not. We ate our suppers out of doors in the backyard, as it was very hot in the kitchen. Doubly so on account of a hot ironing fire. In the evening it was still hot. We tried to get some rest outside, then the mosquitoes bit, so we had to come in. It blew hard. Blew the door open after we had gone to bed, and Gertie thought someone had come in. Sunday, July 15th. We could not get to sleep last night for a long time because it was so sultry and hot, and we arose late this morning. After we did up the work, Gertie and I studied our Sunday school lessons. Eva went to the Baptist church. We read some in the Ram's Horn. After dinner, it was church time, and as soon as we were ready, this had been another sultry hot day. I took Mama's place as superintendent. Gertie taught her class and led class meeting. She talked on prayer. We had a good Sunday school hour. Our lesson was a suffering Savior, the truths of which are too deep to be reached or fathomed or pictured by finite minds. Mrs. Parks stayed in the tent and talked to us a long time. She too talked of home trouble and so on. She came to Sunday school to find out if her boy came, as he had promised to do so. We could not rest anywhere. It was so warm and close. Gertie and I went often to milk. She stopped Brother Parks a moment. Brother Parks preached in the evening from 2 Samuel 18:33. After church, Gertie and I took a short walk in a cool, refreshing air. The beautiful moon beaming down on us, and all quiet and sublime. Monday, July 17th. Last night was so hot we could scarcely sleep. We had to arise early so to get around by school time. A hot day for school. Gertie had dinner ready when we got here. Eva's brother Clifford was here when he came waiting to see Eva. He stayed all afternoon and finally decided to stay all night. Gertie and Mabel went after berries. They had blueberries and strawberries combined. It rained some. Mrs. Frick came in the p.m. She is canvassing. Wanted Nina to buy some pocket handkerchiefs for gents, but she did not buy any. Papa and Mama got home at 6 some after. Had not had supper yet. Were waiting for potatoes. Tuesday, July 18th. Papa went to Brother Briss's to work. Mama was nearly sick after her trip to Shell Lake. Gertie was out calling and giving notice of the WCTU meeting. We studied as usual. In the evening, we were out some on the porch studying when Dolly and another girl came. We had some sport with the goat. When it came, the girls would scatter away. Wednesday, July 19th. Gertie and Pansy picked berries in the forenoon. Of course, we other girls went to school. Miss Jones, the WCTU lecturer, came ready for the evening meeting. She was here to supper. We enjoyed the meeting. No society was formed, but they will try tomorrow p.m. Miss Jones knows Sister Pike and Susie Oval. Thursday, July the 20th. They had their WCTU meeting in the afternoon. In the evening, we girls went to the lecture, got to church, and saw postponed on the door. Gertie, Even, and I went together. We came back and played the guitar and sang. Came near going into a cigar factory on the way home. Ha ha. Friday, July 21st. Nina was not well, so she did not go to school. She went with Gertie, Ray, and Papa berrying. In the afternoon, Papa took Gertie, Vern, Pansy, and I out east berrying, but it soon began to rain, so we came back. Eva and Mabel went out to Osage. We had a very good prayer meeting. Papa led it. Saturday, July 22nd. The state gave us a holiday today. We were to go to the fish lake to spend the day. For an outing, I rode the wheel. Dolly called to me, so I stopped to speak to her. She and 2 other young ladies went with me. As we only had 2 wheels, we walked most of the way, so the rest were away ahead of us. Vern came back to tell us the way, but we missed the road and went to the head of the lake. It was 2 o'clock before we found the rest. We ate dinner, had it with us, and puttered around, wandering where the right road is. Finally, Papa came and found us. Then we reached the buggy. I sat and studied with Nina, and the 3 girls and Gertie went splashing in the lake among the big waves, having a good time. studied in the evening. Sunday, July 23rd. Papa preached after Sunday school from Romans 8, 1, 2, and 3. How good it was. We had a good service. I was completely tired and tried to sleep, but was too nervous. Papa, Mama, Vern, and Pansy went out to Brother Sweet's for an evening meeting, but there a misunderstanding. There was no appointment given out. Clifford Newell, Brother Mabel, and Eva were in town in time for supper. He stayed also. Gertie and I went after the milk. Seemed good to be outdoors. Saw a team running away. The men were drunk. We took another walk to the bridge before meeting. Brother Parks preached good. Monday, July 24th. We arose early so to get around in time for school. Mabel did not go. Studied as ever. Some of the folks went berrying, as ever. Mabel went with them today. Tuesday, July 25th. We worked hard studying, but we enjoy it. In the evening, Gertie and I went down to the courthouse to hear a lecture by Mr. Shoemaker of the St. Cloud Normal. He lectured on New York City. It was very interesting, and oh how small and what a letdown it makes Park Rapids seem. While we teased the girls because they stayed home and missed something good. Wednesday, July 26th. Not many hours to dinner. Papa, Vern, Pansy, and Gertie were gone berrying all day. Oh, there were not many home to dinner, as Papa, Vern, Pansy, and Gertie were out berrying all day. Gertie came home with a big bunch on her head from a bee sting. I don't know just what Violet did. Studied, I guess. Thursday, July 27th. Gertie groped around with one eye as one swelled shut. It rained some. Fred Buss came in after Vern to work for him. He stayed to supper. Friday, July 28th. Rained again. But I like to sit in school when it is raining. It seems more quiet, more homelike. After dinner, Nina, Eva, and I studied, and Mabel went up after the mail. And after Gertie, having been to Mrs. Doran's, came back with her. In the evening, Reverend Milligan lectured in the Baptist church on Egypt. Mama and Gertie both went, but both of us girls had to stay at home and study. They said it was good, and there was an orator there who spoke before and after the lecture. Saturday, July 29th. Our lesson seemed real hard today, and as I was working about 5 on my arithmetic when it generally finished about 3:30 or 4. Pansy came a-dancing into the house about that time and said, "Oh, I know something." And the next minute in walked Nellie. It seemed so good to see her. It did not seem so long since we had parted, and as we were seated around the table that evening, 6 of us girls, it made me think of Gordon, and then that ever lonesome feeling came and hovered over me. But shaking it off, I realized that Nellie was really there, and as I fell asleep that night with her arms around me, I realized truly God is good. Sunday, July 30th. Gertie went up to the Baptist church with Eva, and Nellie and I went up with them when church was out, and we were going up to Miss Doran's, but it rained, so we went back. We had Sunday school in the house, and it was raining, so Nellie left. So Nellie taught the infant class, and I taught the intermediate class, or young people's. And then Papa talked after, and we got Sunday school. Oh, what would we do without a day of rest and gladness and a day to get real soul food? After church, we 6 girls went up to Miss Doran's. As we passed a corner, someone said they would make a good team if they were cornered together. Brother Parks preached in the evening. Monday, July 31st. By the way, I forgot to say last Saturday that we were entertained a few minutes last Saturday in the morning before school. That is, before class session, by an elocutionist. He recited 3 pieces, 2 comic ones, and a very sad one about a Russian mother when the soldiers were going to take her son into exile. Monday, Nellie went to school with us in the morning, and she and Gertie went calling in the afternoon while us girls studied. The girls left an appointment for a prayer meeting Wednesday afternoon. Mama went berrying with Mr. Jarvis in the morning. Tuesday, August 1st. The girls went picking berries, got lost. Mabel stayed out of school and went with them, and got back when us girls were studying. They wandered around from 2 o'clock until very late in the evening. Wednesday, August 2nd. This day was rather a sad one all the way around. The last day the instructors will be with us. How sad it will seem. Mr. Olison, the state superintendent, was with us and talked with and to us a while when he almost thought he learned. When he was almost through, he left us this little quotation. Though I were tall to reach the poles, or grasp the ocean in my span, I must be measured by my soul. The mind's the standard of the man. After he had finished, Mr. King told us that the photographer was outside waiting for us. But Mr. Bradford stood up and told him Mr. White had a few words to say. He took the books we had bought for the 3 instructors, and Mr. White walked up the aisle to the end of it, and then stopped and thanked the instructors for the help we'd received from them. Then after he had presented them with the books, they each, in warmth, in turn, thanked us with tears in their eyes. When we went out and had our pictures taken, and then there were only 3 boys. They began running all over the lawn to get in place where they would show. Then we went out on the west side of the schoolhouse, and the boys climbed up the windows. After that, we went upstairs and went into our several recitation rooms, and the teachers gave us something of an examination as well as a short address. Dear teachers, I have learned to love you. We must so soon part. Parted to meet again at the judgment. Parted to meet no more here below. At 10:30, we were dismissed and went up to the courthouse to a school board convention. And as we were waiting for the superintendent to come up, we all sang, Our God is Marching On. And the superintendent seemed pleased to hear it and said we could get our scholars to sing. The order will care for itself. We studied hard in the afternoon and went back to the lecture in the evening. We had to go up front to help sing. Ray gave Eva and I a bookmark and said Nellie and Gertie were only blueberry pickers. The lecture was good. Mr. Olison put particular stress on the mustness of life. On the way home, Eva and I walked with Mr. King. He explained to us the difference between P&J discount, and then we took Miss Johnson home. We couldn't get out of the railing in time to start with the rest of them, so we were way behind. Thursday, August 3rd. Examination this morning. We all felt a little nervous, I guess. As I was walking down the aisle to my seat, my chair, I noticed Mr. Pierce was sitting in it. He asked if he could sit in my chair, but I told him to never mind and took Eva's. Then I asked him for a knife, and he went all over the schoolhouse to hunt Mr. White, and came back with his, and sharpened it for my pencil for me. The examinations were not hard, perhaps too easy. We studied in the afternoon, and in the evening Nellie and Gertie went over after the mail. We 4 girls went to meet them, and then went around by the slush. Nina and I studied how the rushing, foaming, dashing water reminds me of life. We got back a little late to prayer meeting, I am sorry to say, but we had a good one anyway. Friday, August 4th. Mabel left us this morning on the train. It seems so sad to know that our happy 6, we will all soon be gone. Examinations were not so hard. Eva did not have to take history. Eva left in the afternoon, and Nina left in the evening. I like her, and it seems so lonesome now, for we soon will be gone. We went up to hear the band play. It played so sweet and low. Nellie and I strolled off together. It has been a long time since we had time to talk to each other before. Saturday, August 5th. The rest all went away, and I was going to stay at home and clean up, but Mr. Buss came over, and I helped him with an application blank, and I took my Bible and went up and had my pictures taken. Mr. Pierce asked me if I had not gone home yet. When I got back, I took Mr. Buss's letter up to the depot, and Charlie mailed it for me. In the evening, we went up and called at Mr. Rosie's. Sunday, August 6th. This morning, we girls got up early, intending to hear Brother Cook preach. Dr. Cassette forgot to milk his cow this morning, so the milkman came in, got a pail, and milked it, and brought the milk to us. A few minutes later, Dr. Cassette drove up to see if it had been milked. After I had gotten ready for church, I stepped out and saw Mary Howard going by, and she stepped in and waited for us girls to go with her. Brother Cook preached a lovely sermon, but he is beginning to look worn out and tired, poor man. Oh, if people would only accept the whole gospel truth. We wanted to go out to Brother Sweet's, but Papa thought that he went to preaching in the evening. Monday, September 5th. We did a large washed all our clothes in the evening. We dressed, got our guitars, and went out to Mrs. Rose's calling. On the way back, we stopped a while and listened to a gramophone. Tuesday, August 8th. We got up in the morning and ironed our clothes, packed our clothes in the suitcases. Nellie went up and got her a new one, ironed our neck ribbons, and was ready in time for the 5 o'clock train. Papa drove down to the train, and the rest walked to see us off. And in a few minutes, we were speeding on the train that would bring us into our new field of labor. Once, as we were going through rather rough country, Gertie asked Nellie if she wouldn't like to pick blueberries there. As Nellie looked, we rode into a deep valley with straight sand walls on either side, and Nellie didn't think it looked much like a blueberry country. As we got off the train at Bemidji, the conductor helped us off with no gentle touch. Gentle no touch, and I was so occupied in watching him help the girls that I didn't see anyone on the platform until someone came up and said, "I know this girl because she looks so much like her mother." I looked up in surprise And then she explained to us that she had been sent to take us home with her. Just then Brother and Sister Soper came up, and they helped us carry our suitcases to Sister Weitzel's. She lives on a hill overlooking a lake. It is not a mansion, but it is like some home. Wednesday, August 9th. This morning we got up, and Sister Weitzel took us over to Brother Sulphur's, and we stayed there for dinner. And then we went over to Mrs. Paris for supper. She is French Catholic, but she and her husband seem to be real nice people. The church we use is situated back of a saloon, but it is real neat, and there were about 30 out. We walk back to Bemidji tonight, but they will have a place for us tomorrow night. Thursday, August 10th. Today was a very hot day, so we did not start over to Mymore in the evening, buying our lunch, and then taking our supper in the church. Nellie preached a fine sermon, but only a few were out. We went home with Mrs. Lloyd and was made to feel at home. Help us, God. In parentheses, over Friday, August 11th, blood and fire. Brother Kennard of Park Rapids was going to the church, so as we were going over to Bemidji to hold some mail, some letters, we were called in the mail park on the way over. We went to Brother Soper's to supper. Mrs. Randall was also there. After supper, we went downtown. The army boys sat on the stripes of the hall with their music. As we went down one street, there they stood, tall, straight, noble, with shining faces. Gertie and I stepped out upon the street, but Gertie, Nellie, went on and came back with Mrs. Soper and Mrs. Randall. Mr. Wilson gave Gertrude charge of the testimony meeting. They asked Gertie and I to sing a duet, and we sang, "Oh, the Fashion." After the meeting, we went up another corner across from Miles' saloon. Mr. and Mrs. Driver came while we were there. While Mr. Cungreen was over talking to me, or asking me to sing, rather, a Swede man came and asked him to sing a song in his own language, which he soon after did, which was, "Shall We Gather at the River?" It seemed beautiful. Then Mr. Wilson stepped out, and taking off his cap, showed his noble, she started to say bald, but then put noble forehead. He said he wanted one more chance to testify on his birthday. He sang 2 years ago tonight, I am sorry to say. I was seated at a gambling table. Someone in the crowd said, "Why, you wasn't any better man I am then." But Mr. Lindgren went over and laid his hand on his shoulder, and the man helped, still while Mr. Wilson finished speaking. After the meeting, all had gone except the lieutenants, us girls, and Mr. and Mrs. Driver. The boys were telling us some of the past experiences when Mr. Driver came up and told us a young man had come out on the street to be prayed for. Mr. Wilson said, "Amen, let's pray." But as he was part way down on his knees and was about to put his arms around the man, he looked up, and he was gone. He said, "Amen, let's pray anyway," and commenced. "Oh Lord, you know this fellow is full of whiskey and full of the devil," but feeling the man brush by him, he said, "Praise God, he is here." Then he and Mr. Lindgren prayed for him. He claimed to be saved, and we arose from our knees. Then after we had talked some more, and Mr. Wilson and Mr. Driver had given Gertie some money, we said farewell and parted, telling, "Truly we have been with God." Saturday, August 12th. We stayed at Mrs. Weitzel's last night, and then went over to Nymore in the morning. Became the unwelcome guest of an old woman and her learning it we went, without shaking dust off our feet, to the church, and ate a 10-cent dinner in the church. Nellie took the meeting, bright-eyed, laughing little Nell. Sunday, August 13th. Nellie was sick this morning. Gertie and I went to Sunday school. There were not many, but meeting at 2:30 in the afternoon, Gertie took the meeting, and we had real good time in the Lord. In the evening, Lieutenant Wilson and Lindgren with their soldiers came over. Gertie took the song service, and as Nellie was not feeling very strong, I took the meeting and talked a few minutes, then turned the meeting over to the S.A. Mr. Wilson looked suddenly surprised and said, "Well, praise God, come on." And Mr. Iron had went up, and he began to look around for seats for the rest. So Gertie and I took a seat, and the soldiers and we girls went up and sat down. Gertie and Mr. Lindgren were going to play the organ and guitar, but he busted his guitar string, so we played the organ. Mr. Wilson had a testimony meeting. Mr. Soper talked to us, and then they had a service. Oh, how they pled for lost souls to be saved. And 2 came. Praise the name of the Lord. Monday, August 14th. We were at Brother Larson's last night, and this morning Nellie and I went over to Bemidji to get some clothes and the mail we got there. And we went to Mrs. Weitzel's. She's a dear old lady. May God bless her. We started back after dinner, but as it commenced to rain, we stopped in a show store, as it didn't look like this, so it was going to quit raining. We came, both of us, table envelopes, and trusted to God. We started out and went to Nymore in the rain. George S., Nellie's cousin, had been there. He came back and stayed all night. It was so rainy we did not go down to the church this evening. Tuesday, August 15th. We girls went calling this morning, the afternoon. Nellie went home with her cousin, Gertie's, and I had to take the meeting. We had a real good meeting. God was in our midst. It was lonesome a whole long night without little Nellie. Wednesday, August 16th. Nellie got home early this morning, and we went calling. Nellie took the evening meeting. We stayed all night with Mrs. Haggers. Thursday, August 17th. We got a call from the S.A. boys that they would like to meet tonight. The girls called in the afternoon, and I prepared for meeting. We enjoyed the meeting so much tonight. Mr. Lindgren talked after I did, and Mr. Wilson took up the service. How he pled with them. He leaned over the congregation, and seemed to strain every muscle as he swayed himself to and fro before them. He pled and prayed until exhausted, then turning to us with an agonized, pleading look, he dropped into a chair. We got up and did our best, while Mr. Wilson worked in the congregation. But their hearts seemed as brass and would not yield. We dismissed them with the hope of prayer that they would not put it off too long. Stayed until almost 10. Friday, August 19th. Mr. Larson took us after and to his party, Blue Burning, this morning. We picked about 20 girls. They were quite nice to us. There were not many out in the evening. Gertie talked on faith, and we had a good time in the Lord. Saturday, August 19th. This morning, Mr. Hollis and Gertie went over to Bemidji. Nellie and I were going over calling today, but as it was so near dinner time, we waited until after. The Memoirs of Lucinda Violet Wade Henwood, Volume 2, beginning with November of 1905. Monday, November 20th. When we got the work done this morning and I was finished just getting ready to go to the post office, we looked out of the window and there was Mr. and Mrs. Higgins. They stayed for dinner and took the afternoon train for Hackensack. I dreamed last night that I was at the scene of the crucifixion. I thought that at first I stood up near to the cross, but seeing the crowd a ways, off I went with them. Oh, how true. Can we weak mortals blame the disciples? Tuesday, November 21st. Papa and Mama went to Staples this afternoon. Papa says he is going to write to Lee to bring Lola over for Thanksgiving. I would like so much, and Papa does think so much of that family. I went to see Emma a while in the afternoon. Wednesday, November 22nd. This morning, Papa and Mama started to Gordon this morning. I went to the post office in the afternoon, got a requested letter from Edwin with a rubber form. My Bible was in it. And one from Lizzie Boyer. She wants me to come up to the meadow to preach. There was quite a crowd to prayer meeting, and I had to lead. Clyde T. was there. Wednesday, November 22nd. Nothing. Thursday, November 23rd. I did not do much today, but housework and fixed the flounce on my brown skirt. It rained all day. We went to bed around 8:30 after I had read. Friday, November the 4th, 24th. I baked this morning. Mandy came to see me. Emma and her cousin called in the afternoon. Emma let me read her letter from Ira. I got a letter from Ira's wife, and Uncle Vern sent some more family groups. They were just fine. I expected the folks home tonight, but they did not come. Suppose they stopped at Brother Woodward's. How sweet is our trust in God. Saturday, November 24th. I got up this morning and went to work, was mopping when they came home. They put off Mr. Sam's trial until they came, so I was alone most of the afternoon. Mrs. Roberts helped me sweep the church, and I went to church with her in the evening. Brother Hope preached from the 28th Psalm. Oh, the sweetness of God's Word. Sunday, November 26th. We had good services this morning, but the congregations were small as there was meeting and all of the other churches had sermons. Flora Williams was there, so I went out to Lindale with her and Papa. I enjoyed the ride out there, and the meeting gave me strength. It was a cold ride back, but when we got back, there was a bright fire in the dining room, and supper was ready. We had a good evening meeting. Monday. I washed today, and Mama sewed on my dress. I got a letter from Soko and wrote one. Sono. How glad I am they are coming. That really is, I got a letter from Lola. My thoughts, did I guess, this evening as I opened the old chest, and I looked on things I had not seen for a year until last Saturday, and some of them, not for memory's sake, I looked them over. Oh, how my mind went back to the past, those happy days. Perhaps it is foolish to have helped those things. Those foolish to have kept those things, those foolish little things. Lee's bouquet of weeds and the other flowers, Dove's spray of popular birds, the tail of a flying squirrel that Duncan gave me. And besides this foolishness, there was a piece of Minnie's wedding cake and the bunch of flowers from it. A note from Lola wrote to me at school, happy school days, and such things innumerable. And then the sadder part. The little dresses of a brother and sister long ago gone to a better, happier home. But their forms lay not far away in an evergreen cemetery where tonight the cold blizzard wind drives the snow to and fro above them, but thank God they are not there. I had to take the claws out to air them, and as I took them out tenderly, sadly, I came to one little brown and white dress. How distinctly I could hear her as she told Mama to make it a good way, and as I fondly gazed up, I saw the tender touches of a mother's hand. Oh God, Father, how sweet it will be in that beautiful land, free from all the sorrow and care, or with songs on our lips and with harps in our hands, we meet one another again. Tuesday. When we got up this morning, there was about 2 feet of snow on the ground. I ironed and Mama sewed in my dress. Wednesday. Papa started early this morning. I've spent the forenoon in bathing, and in making other preparations. In the afternoon, I went up to the post office. We set the table for them, but as they did not come, we ate our supper, and I did the work while Mama went over to the church. About 8, as I stepped out on the back porch, I heard them come. I ran out, then jumped over snowdrifts, and soon we were in each other's arms. When we came in the house, Mama was there, as there wasn't anyone to prayer meeting. After supper and prayers, we went to bed, and Iola read my journal, and after we did get into bed, we, like Nellie, and lay and talked until far into the night, or morning perhaps. Thursday, November 30th, Thanksgiving. We got up this morning rather late and started to get ready for church. We were washing dishes and wondering why Lee did not come when Iola went and looked out of a little hole in the window. Frost, and then she jumped, ran to the right door saying, "Oh, there's Lee." We pulled at the door a while, and then I noticed it was buttoned, and we unbuttoned it, and then noticed it was nailed and jerked the nail out, and then at last the door came open, and Iola ran out and threw her arms around his neck, and I met him on the steps with my hands all dishwater. Iola said afterward, perhaps people would think it was me who ran out, as no one had yet seen her. Iola got ready, and then we 3 went to church. We had a good Thanksgiving meeting. Everyone seemed to be truly thankful. We did not go out much today, and I was so cold. We just sat around and enjoyed each other. We only had lunch for supper, as we had such a late dinner. And then we all ate apples and grapes and nuts. Iola and I sat and talked way until the night. Friday, December 1st. We had breakfast this morning about 8:30, and after we got the breakfast over, we were sitting in the front room, and the mail came. There was a letter from Mrs. Emery, Gertie, Nellie, and Myrtle. We all read them, and then Lee, Iola, and I went out to see the pines. They were more beautiful than I'd ever seen before. They were loaded so heavily with snow that some of them touched over the road, making an archway, while some so heavy that they broke under their own weight. We got some boughs of Norway and white pine. We went down an old road, and as the trees were hanging over the road, we shook snow on each other and then brushed it off again with sprigs of pine. After dinner, Lee, Iola, and I went out to Mrs. Trollson's. The roads were beautiful. Everything was laden with snow. The rails on the fences were filled from one to the other with snow. We got off the road a little, going out, but we did not come back in the evening. We went uptown and stopped at the post office. After supper, we visited until 12 when Lee went. If Iola and I hadn't made ourselves go to sleep, we would have talked an hour or two. Saturday, December 2nd. We visited all forenoon and after dinner. Iola went home, or rather with Papa, to see Inergo, or whatever. I have had such a quiet, happy time. I do thank God she stands so true. They had missionary meeting at our house. Sunday, December 3rd. I got to Sunday school this morning on time for a wonder. After Sunday school, Mr. Mason came over to our converse with his children through the agencies of the pen. I went over to M.E. Sunday School in the afternoon and then got ready to take charge of the evening meeting as I saw Mr. Mason was not going to deliver his lecture. He is going to give his eats away so they won't be exposed to the elements. Papa came home, so I did not have to take the evening meeting, but we had such a good meeting. Monday, December 4th. Maud stayed all night with me last night, and this morning I went up to see Faye, Cole, and then went home with Mandy for dinner. Mama started my blue dress. Tuesday. Mama and Papa went to Staples with Mr. and Mrs. Gregory. I washed, and about 1, Sister Oliver came over. I like her so much. I know we have a few real Free Methodists left yet. She stayed until about 5. Mama was home before she went. Wednesday. I lined my jacket and Mama finished my dress, all but buttons and buttonholes. Sister Gregory came after dinner. Her brother is hopelessly insane. She is almost heartbroken. I called on Mrs. Barnes. I like her ever so much. We had a good prayer meeting and had quite a crowd out. Mr. Mason tried sitting with Mrs. Gregory again. Well, God was there, and I believe all who went for good went away feeling truly it was good to be there. Thursday, December 8th. I spent the day in preparing to leave. We got a fine picture of Charlie, Jake, Will, and Edgar Lane taken in Kansas City. Mabel Silps was to see me today. Homer came to see the parrot. I sent that block to Mrs. Brink. Friday, December 8th. I got no letter from Nellie, so prepared to leave on the night train. Did all those loose little things which are left until the last thing in packing. While waiting for my train, I did the work upstairs, wrote to Minnie and her mother, and kissing them all goodbye and asking them to pray for me, I left for the train at 12. Papa went with me. Saturday, December 9th. The train was almost on time. So, kissing Papa goodbye, I got on my train. A foreign girl sat in front of me. I don't believe I ever saw anyone look so perfect, a picture of the Orient as she did. I got acquainted with the girl in Staples by getting into the men's waiting room with her. We took the train together. She is a Catholic, but I believe members of every church will be saved. I had a sleeping beauty in front of me. We sleep only waking up when someone spoke to us or when the car gave a sudden lurch. There was not much going on out of our coach, so it was very quiet. We rested until the train stopped at my station, Fertile. Gertie and Olive were there. We went up to Mr. LaRue's. Nelson was there. I lay down and slept until dinner and again in the afternoon. We stayed all night at Mr. Carlson's. Ellen is a beautiful Christian woman, but has consumption. Sunday. We went to hear Mr. Peters preach in the morning. In the afternoon, Gertie took the meeting and talked good. I took the evening meeting and talked from What is man that thou art mindful of him? And Heart of man that thou shalt visit him. The crowds are good. Monday, December the 11th. I wrote a letter home. We wrote and studied one book, Charge of the Prayer Meeting. Talked on faith. Praise God, I have faith to believe he doeth all things well. Tuesday, December 12th. We intended to go calling this morning. Went up to LaRue's first to get our mail. As we were coming out, Mrs. LaRue said that we couldn't guess who was there. We guessed Nellie, but she said she wasn't going to let us see her. So we went calling and then made 6 calls and went to Sister LaRue's for dinner. It seemed good to see Nellie once more. In the afternoon we went uptown and made 3 calls. Nellie was with us. I got one letter today from Osakis. Gertie took the evening meeting. Wednesday, December 13th. Nellie had such a cold she stayed here. I went with Gertie calling and we took Thomas's picture up to the gallery to get the spot taken off of it. We made 9 calls today. I took the meeting and talked from the 26th chapter of Matthew. Praise God. To their faith, to our faith, we shall all conquer. Thursday, December 14th, my 18th birthday. Gertie and I went calling. We talked today in the poorest part of the city. Some of the people were very poor, but were very, very dirty. One woman got us to sing. We made 9 calls again and returned to Father Carlson's. There were quite a few out to the hall. Nellie talked so good. I sat with open mouth wonder, said I could have listened all night, but she said I couldn't, as she couldn't have talked that long. Gertie went home with Mrs. Johnson. Friday, December 15th. Nellie and I wrote and studied this morning, and in the afternoon we went calling and called at 12 homes, but we did not pray at all of them, as some were sick and some were Lutheran. Gertie did not come until later. Nellie and Gertie went to get the books, and I built the fire. Gertie talked good. Samuel L. came up into the hall. Gertie talked good, and Samuel L. came up into the hall. Saturday, December 16th. Gertie did not come over until late in the afternoon. Read Wesleyan sermons to each other, and then we went over to Sister Ledoux's house, got Nellie's clothes. She wanted us to go over there to supper. Gertie was too tired to go, so Nellie and I went alone. Had prayers after supper, and Nellie came back. I went to bed around 11. Sunday, December 17th. We had breakfast this morning about 9. I helped Olive wash the dishes and then came over to Mr. Carlson's to get ready to go to Mrs. Olsted's to dinner. Before dinner, Nellie and I studied. Gertie played the guitar and sang. We had a nice dinner. Nellie and I went up to the post office to open the hall and found both doors locked. Arthur made us a skeleton key, and we got in. I talked on 1 Corinthians 8:13. Sam was up again, and quite a few others. Gertie and I, went back to Sister Olsted's. Nellie went to Sister Carlson's. Nellie talked in the evening from Be Not, Also Leap. There were several men in the hall who seemed very interested. Gertie went home with Sister Ledoux. Monday, December 18th. Nellie and I rode for all forenoon and part of the afternoon. Gertie came over after dinner. We had a prayer meeting in the evening. Gertie led. We were all blessed, especially Nellie. I went home with Sister Ledoux and stayed all night. Tuesday, December 19th. I stayed over to Mrs. Ledoux's all morning and fixed Olive's corset cover. Saturday, in the den or parlor, and as Olive and Nelson didn't know it, I had a natural conversation from them. I heard a natural conversation from them. After dinner, I went over to Sister Carlson's and helped Sister Ellen iron. Gertie talked tonight on repentance. S.C. Ledoux rose for prayers. Wednesday, December 20th. Nellie and I took our dirty clothes and went over to Sister Ledoux's to wash them. Then I went over to Sister Carlson's to prepare for meeting. Talked on the rich man and Lazarus. Gertie went home with Mr. Ledoux. And I went with Mr. Carlson. Thursday, December 21st. Nellie and I got up this morning and helped do the work. Gertie came in the afternoon and went out selling mottos. We all stayed at Mr. Carlson's for supper. Nellie talked on the Feast of Belshazzar. Friday, December 22nd. Gertie and Nellie went out calling and selling mottos. This is the first day I haven't went calling, that is, when anyone went. They didn't have very good luck today. Some people came to the windows to look out and then went away without coming to the door. Nellie is even now saying it was an awful day. Gertie took the evening meeting. Thursday. In the afternoon, Gertie went out selling mottos, and we went over to Fertile, and oh, the beauty of it all. It had been damp the day before, and the trees were all frosty. It was down in a valley, and there were only 3 houses and a red mill, with pots all around. The first house we stopped at was a small brown house with 2 more houses with families. The next was a place where the girl had scarlet fever and the boy rheumatic fever. Then we called it a large green mansion. There were shells and rocks arranged in the first hall. In the second was the wine stairway, and there were plants and ferns. Then in the first parlor there were more plants, and things were just carelessly enough arranged to make it look like there were rows of spruce trees in front of the house. A young lady received us who said she was a Christian and promised to pray for the meetings. Then after we had left the house, we were loath to leave. The beautiful valley was so wonderful. I walked on past the mill and crossed the bridge over the Sandhill River and up between 2 large hills, and looking up we ran away up on the summit of one of the highest, an arch galeway, and on the arch were the words Pleasant Hill Cemetery. We found some steps to a stairway to get to the top. When I had arrived the marble granite monuments, we went over to call on Mr. Bundestreit's. When we sat down, they brought us some beer and sort of a cookie. We ate the cookies but refused the beer. Though Gertie was playing on the guitar, Rather, I was, and the grandma told me to put it on the bed. It was the only English she spoke while we were there. We stayed for supper, and they asked us to come back after meeting. We said we would. See page 161. And that is going backwards in the book. Saturday, December 23rd. Mr. Faverstead came in, and Nellie and I went out with him. Gertie would have went, but Ellen wouldn't let her. Poor little girl. We like it well out here. Went to bed about 11:30. Slept in the ground floor bedroom. Ha ha. Sunday, December 24th. Johnny took us into Fertile. Esther was sick with measles, so Sister T would not go. He waited until evening. We were rather late to church. I talked quite a while, a good size, and congregational on what will you do with Jesus. At supper at the Olsteads, Gertie stopped in to hear Mr. Nelson leave the Endeavor. I went up to the hall alone. There were several young men to church tonight who were very attentive. Nellie talked good on to it nothing to thee, all ye that pass by. Gertie and Nellie went to Sister Ledoux's. Mr. Ledoux walked over to Mr. Carlson's with me to carry my books. Then I went out to Brother Faverstad's. Monday, December 25th. Christmas, 1905. Merry Christmas, old book. Here it is, Christmas, and we are still partners. I can't tell you as many secrets as I might like, as I am afraid you would not keep them to yourself, you naughty book. And I guess she might have known that she would have a grandmother read this on tape. We had breakfast about them this morning, and I helped help do the housework. And about 1, Mr. Ledoux and his mother Gertie and Nellie and Mrs. Olsted came. We had a bounteous dinner about 3 o'clock. Sister Olsted brought the guitar, and Gertie played, and we sang. About 4, we commenced prayer meeting. Nellie led. We sang a hymn and knelt down and prayed. When we rose, the sun had gone down, and darkness had fallen around us. Sister T lit the hanging lamp, and the little p.m. was finished. By alternately singing and praying, just as we were about to close, Mr. Ledoux rose and asked an interest in our prayers, and said he saw that there was no other way. The house rang with the glad amens, and the meeting closed. What a glad Christmas tide it had been, and we all expected to be so lonesome. Mrs. Carlson sent me a silk handkerchief, and Ellen a towel, and a washcloth. We all stayed with Sister T. Gertie made Sister T an apron, and while she was trying it on her, she said she believed that Mr. LaRue liked it when she put his overcoat over Gertie. Johnny took us to Fertile when we ate supper at Mr. Carlson's. Gertie took the evening night meeting. Mrs. Olsted said all of us girls could go home with her, but Sister Ledoux wanted Nellie and I wanted to go. Nellie and I went over to Mrs. Olsted's. Wednesday, December 27th. Gertie came in the morning, and we took Nellie's suitcase to get it fixed. Went down to the depot to get Gertie's application signed, then went to the post office. Mr. Ledoux told her that Diedrich Carlson was dead. Nellie and I went over to Mr. Carlson's to get our pocketbooks, and they were feeling terrible. They didn't know he was saved, and they threw their arms around our necks and sobbed, "My boy." After we had eaten dinner at Mrs. Olson's, we went back to Mr. Carlson's at Mr. Carlson's request, over there to hold a prayer meeting. There were few friends out, and the relatives of a loved one gone seemed more subdued after the meeting. We closed by singing Lead Kindly Light. We ate supper at Mrs. Ledoux's. We took the evening meeting, talked from John 3:16. We all stayed at Sister Ledoux's. Gio and Nellie, Gertie and Nellie, slept in the southwest bedroom, and I slept with Sister Ledoux. Thursday, December 28th. Got up quite late and went over to the girls' room, and as Nelson had gone to Bagley on the morning train, and Sam had gone to the post office, we had the upstairs to ourselves. We had the PM at Sister Ledoux's in the afternoon. There were only Mr. Ledoux and his mother, Sister Ellen, and us girls. I led the PM and read The Temptations of Jesus. After we had all prayed and testified, Mr. Ledoux, we will call him Brother Ledoux now, got up and talked as near as I, on remembering that this is what he said. The burden is lifted yesterday. I got some help, but I had not settled it until this morning, and I woke rather early and was thinking about it. Thought of all Christ had suffered for me in Gethsemane and Calvary, and there I settled it, and the burden was now lifted. For 10 years I have been more or less under conviction. When I was 19, I was under very deep conviction. I thought for a while I would lose my mind. I used to go out and sit under the trees and wish I could vanish into nothing, but all this I kept to myself. And this was one of my worst of my faults, keeping everything to myself. Then out here to the schoolhouse, when Brother Reynolds preached, I sat on a front seat. There was no altar call given. I felt like going anyway, but didn't. And then I was sick. It seemed like I was too weak to trust. But now I mean to live a different life, and I ask and entrust for your prayers. Ask an interest in your prayers. He sat down, and perhaps for a second there was dead silence, but oh, the glory that filled the room. Then the air was filled with shouts and praises, for hasn't God said, there will be joy in the presence of an angel over one sinner that repents, and hadn't the children of God a right to rejoice here below? For a few minutes nothing was said or could be said but for the shouts of joy and praise. Then we rose and sang brokenly, Blessed be the tie that binds. Then Gertie played as Mrs. Ledoux asked one of us to, and he helped us sing. What a grand change! How much that step meant to him. Him in his position, him with all his care, but those wrinkles are leaving his face. I must quit, or if someone who reads this will lose the holy side in realizing that I, a girl, am this scrapping of a boy or young man. But think what you may, there is joy, there is joy, there is joy among the ages, among the angels. We ate supper at Brother Carlson's. How our hearts ached for them. Nellie took the evening meeting, and Gertie and I both talked. We did so hate to see it come to a close, but yet it seemed to be the hand of God for us to go. And if we had a month after he said go and worked night and day, it would do no good. So we sang God Be With You Till We Meet Again, and sang it with our hearts. We went to Sister Ledoux's, and we all slept together in her bed. The dear old lady was so afraid we wouldn't sleep well. If we today could live her way, what a kind old world it would be. The girls put me to bed the night before, so I was ready to go. It is the last night us girls will be together for a time alone will tell. We appreciated the privilege very much. Friday, December 29th. We went down to breakfast this morning between 8 and 9, and Mr. Ledoux had not eaten, so we waited a while for him, and a while them, as his mother said. Perhaps he had gone over to Mr. Carlson's with a telegram, so we sat down, but hadn't been eating long when he came. This was to be the last breakfast eaten in this place and dining room. We all had prayers in the sitting room, and after prayers, Sister Ledoux told us girls not to think of dishes, so we sat and talked about an hour. Then Sam went down to fix the furnace, and Nellie and I went over to pack our suitcases. Then we, promising to be back to supper, we went over to Sister Olsted's for dinner. Mr. Ledoux and his mother came over to dinner. After dinner, we had prayers. Then we girls went over to Mrs. Englisher's to see the lady who had consumption, and then to Mrs. Carlson's. We had there one of those sad, sweet times that fits so well with my nature. After supper, we helped wash the dishes, the last time for a while at least. Then we had prayers. How can we sympathize with them who have lost one so dear to them and don't know that he was saved? We all prayed, and after lingering goodbyes, loving kisses, and warm handshakes, we asked their prayers and promised us to pray for them, that God would keep them in their sorrow. Then we left them and went to Sister Ledoux's. She was just getting ready to go down and get us. Olive stopped and bid us goodbye. She was going to a party, also Josephine. Sam came home from the post office, and in a few minutes we started to the depot after bidding his Sister Ledoux goodbye. Nellie had quite a time at the depot today trying to get her tickets, while Brother Ledoux took me on the train to find a seat. In Nellie's hurry, she forgot her muff. We had to sit on a double seat with a young man. Asking the prayers of Brother Ledoux and promising ours, we will bid him goodbye, and last a farewell look at Gertie from the doorway or vestibule, and the train rolled on. We held some short conversation with the young man before he got off. He invited us to put our wraps on his seat. Nellie slept some after he left, but I did not. There was a lady in the train who said she couldn't sleep and didn't want anyone else to. She told of crossing Lake Ontario in a terrible storm. As we went through, thought of many things. I wonder what little Carl is doing and why I never saw Elmer. Saturday, 12th. January the 2nd. We had to change cars in Staples. A young man asked us if we wanted a hotel. We told him we were changing cars. He took our cases and escorted us to our train, raised his cap, and left us. We then had 3 hours wait for a morning train. It was very warm and crowded in the coach, and in front of us was a man who kept saying popcorn, Duluth, and North Shaw. We got to Motley at 4:30, and when we left our suitcases in the depot, the agent told us we were just in time. There was a big ball in town. I told him we never danced, and we went out. We were very tired, and I was never tired. And I noticed that the lights were not light after worrying about it too long. We got home. It seemed good to get home again. I saw some traveling cases, and upon asking who they were, they told me it was Mr. Jones of optometry. We went up to my room and went up to bed. I put our lunch under the bed, intending to go to bed, to stay a while and eat. We got up and eat if we got up hungry. In the morning, I was awakened early by Brother Jones's praying. It was music to my ears, for I had never seen him. I could tell the true ring of salvation. About evening, they thought we had slept long enough, so they brought us up some refreshments. About 8, they thought we'd slept long enough, so they brought us up some refreshments and Christmas presents. For Christmas, I got a pickle dish from Mrs. Davis, a Christmas card from Minnie, a silk handkerchief from Mrs. C., a towel and washcloth, Ellen Carlson, 50 cents from Mrs. Holstead, $1 from Mrs. Faverstead, a card from Dana Young, toothbrush holder from Mabel S., collar and turnover from Myrtle, lace curtains from Mama, a card and picture from Minnie, and a tumbler holder from Mr. Jones. And this says late. It got so warm in the room that we had to go downstairs. We didn't do much but go uptown, and we met Brother Jones in the evening. Went to bed early. Sunday, December 31st. We got up early this morning and went to church. Brother Jones preached. In the afternoon, Nellie and I went over and visited the M.E. Sunday School. Brother Jones preached again in the evening on God is Love. He preached good. I like to hear him, and it does seem so good to be able to sit and listen to someone else. New Year, 1906. Happy New Year! Nellie and I made some popcorn balls for Vern and Pansy this morning. Mrs. and Mr. Oliver and Lucian came to eat a New Year's dinner with us. Mr. Boyer wanted Papa to come out to Mr. Friedrichson's at 5 o'clock and marry him, and told him to bring the folks. So after dinner, which we enjoyed very much, and Nellie and I were told we must be married to each other, N and I, whoever N and I, we went uptown to get them a wedding present. Then about 5 we drove up into the yard. At first we did not know whether it was the house until I got a glimpse of some white, fresh curtains. Then I knew it was the right place. The wedding was delayed a little while the bride lost her belt. After a little after 5, the bride and the groom appeared. The bride looked lovely in a cream-colored dress. She was small and had black hair with white ribbons in it. The groom was dressed in black with patent leather shoes. Miss Adeline F. stood up with the bride and Mr. Goodnow as best man. Her father felt very bad to lose his little girl. After the ceremony, the groom wouldn't let the bride hardly get out of his arms. After the wedding, a bounteous wedding supper was served. Tuesday. Mr. and Mrs. Randall were here for dinner. Mr. Jones left today for Brainerd, where he will visit his brother. Before he left, he gave me a lovely nickel tumbler holder. Mama and Papa went out to Lindale. Wednesday, December 3rd. We got up at 9:05 this morning. It seemed so good to be alone, and we made good use of it all day. We only sat around and we enjoyed it. We called on Emma for an hour, and then in the afternoon went to prayer meeting. We had a good prayer meeting, thank God. Thursday the 4th, I stayed all night with home and had a good time. In the morning I woke. How beautiful the sun looked shining through the frosty pines. It seemed to remind me of some things I knew. Friday, December 5th. We only wrote letters today and did housework. I wrote to little Carl. I went up to stay with Emma again, but her father had got home. Saturday, December 6th. Today I read the sad news of Raymond Hale's death last night. Raymond Cale's death last night. He was at a party of Mr. Townsend's, as well as any of them, and he took the morning train for Brainerd, and this morning was found unconscious on the street, with his cap and suitcase at his feet. Poor Raymond, and I was just wanting so to see him a little, that I think that I would see his cold marble form instead of his bright, strong young man he was. And my God, was he ready? How sudden. And she has his obituary pasted in the back of her diary. Sunday, December 17th. I stayed in my room this morning with a very bad cold and headache until church time, only going down for prayers. There were only 21 at Sunday school, and we all had such colds we could hardly sing. Nellie and I took the evening meeting. I talked on what will you